In a time long before memory, when the whispers of the gods echoed through the valleys of Greece, there lived a man named Acrisius, the king of Argos. One day, driven by the weight of his own mortality and concerns for the lineage of his house, Acrisius sought counsel from an oracle. With a voice as ancient as time itself, the oracle revealed a prophecy that Acrisius would one day be slain by his own grandson. Trouble brewed in Acrisius's heart at these words, for his lineage was paramount and his life ever precious. Determined to thwart this ominous fate, Acrisius took drastic measures. His daughter, the fair and gentle Danae, was locked away in a bronze chamber, cast away from the world and its possibilities. Carved into the earth beneath the palace, this chamber of bronze was both a prison and a sanctuary, designed to keep her safe from suitors and, more importantly, the threat of childbirth. In this solitary confinement, Danae could bask in the light of neither sun nor moon, her company reduced to shadows and silence. Yet the gods, ever watchful and as unpredictable as the wind, had other designs. Zeus, the mightiest of them, looked down upon Danae and saw in her solitude a beauty and purity that moved his divine heart. Making the decision that could alter the course of destiny, he visited Danae in the form of a golden rain. Under this miraculous downpour, Danae experienced a wondrous transformation as Zeus's divine presence filled the chamber with light. It was in this mystical union that Perseus was conceived, a child of both human and godly essence. Time flowed like a gentle river within the confines of the bronze chamber, and soon a new life emerged. Danae, with utmost secrecy and tender care, gave birth to her son, Perseus. Hidden from the world, the tiny infant was cradled within the embrace of his mother, his cries absorbed by the walls of bronze that surrounded them. Despite the seclusion, Danae found joy and strength in her son's innocent gaze. But the secrets of the world have a way of wriggling free, and Acrisius, relentless in his vigilance, discovered the secret birth of his grandson. Fearful and desperate to forestall the grim prophecy foretold by the oracle, Acrisius devised a desperate plan. He ordered that Danae and her newborn son be placed into a wooden chest, sealing them off from life and breath, from familiar scents and sounds. Aboard this small vessel, vulnerable and frail, they were cast out into the merciless embrace of the open sea. As the chest bobbed upon the ocean waves, guided by the invisible hand of divine will, the storms of fate swirled overhead. Dark clouds gathered, casting shadows across the waters of the Aegean. Yet, despite the ominous skies, the chest remained afloat, a small vessel caught in the vast, tumultuous sea. The divine hand did not abandon them. The chest, buoyant and adrift, traveled safely across the waters until it finally touched the shores of Seriphos, a small island cradled by the sea. Here, it was found by Dictys, a humble fisherman whose heart was as steady as the sturdy nets he cast upon the sea. Upon discovering the chest's precious contents, Dictys, filled with compassion, took Danae and the infant Perseus into his care, welcoming them into his modest home with open arms. Thus began the chapter of Perseus' life far from the lands of his birth, nourished by the kindness of a stranger. The sea, it seemed, had delivered not the destructive fate that Acrisius feared, but a new beginning bathed in the golden light of destiny's unfolding path. In the tranquil island of Seriphos, surrounded by the endless murmurs of the sea, young Perseus grew under the loving care of his mother, Danae, and their kind protector, Dictys. Away from the shadows of King Acrisius's cruel intent, Perseus's early years were filled with the laughter and curiosity that comes hand in hand with childhood. As the seasons passed, Perseus blossomed into a brave and eager youth. Like the gentle ebbing of the tides shaping the shore, a sense of heroism began to take root within him. His days were spent exploring the island's rugged coastline, listening to Dictys's tales of great deeds, and legendary heroes, each story kindling the embers of courage and daring in his heart. Yet, all was not as serene as it seemed. Hidden behind the walls of the palace was King Polydectes, ruler of Seriphos, whose eyes had long been cast upon Danae. The king's desires, once mild as a whisper, grew into a cunning and dangerous scheme born of jealousy and ambition. Polydectes saw in Perseus not only an obstacle to his desires, but also a threat to his rule. So he began to plot and contrive, weaving a web to entrap the boy. He contemplated, strategizing ways to rid himself of Perseus, ensuring the young man would venture on a path from which he might never return. Deceptively charming, Polydectes feigned affections for Danae, an act laced with ulterior motives. He approached her with gestures of courtship, each carefully calculated step designed to draw Perseus into a precarious game of power. Danae, ever wary of sudden changes in fortune, watched with concern as the king's interest in her intensified. She too sensed a storm brewing, a disruption threatening to upset their hard-earned peace. With plans now well laid, Polydectes announced a grand banquet at the heart of his palace, inviting noblemen and dignitaries from across the island. Beneath the guise of celebration, the banquet was the stage for his next move. The king issued an edict for all those attending to present him with fine horses, a tribute he knew was beyond the means of young Perseus. It was a calculated blow, intended to humiliate and isolate the boy from his peers. However, at the height of the evening, the banquet hall, filled with glinting goblets and subdued whispers, bore witness to an unexpected turn. Perseus, stirred by a youthful blend of indignation and bravado, declared to Polydectes that if horses were the king's desire, he could offer the head of Medusa instead, a feat daunting and nearly unfathomable, spoken in haste yet with determination clear in his eyes. Gasps echoed through the hall, rippling like wind through the leaves as Polydectes' face twisted from feigned disinterest to a wolfish grin, his trap finally sprung. Polydectes, never one to let an opportunity slip by, seized upon Perseus' words with the rigidity of iron clamping upon an unsuspecting prey. With a voice edged with mockery, the king proclaimed, in front of gathered guests, that young Perseus would indeed be required to make good on his boast. The decision weighed heavily, the banquet dimming to a thoughtful quiet as all absorbed this decree. Suddenly, dreams of heroic deeds collided with daunting reality, painting Perseus' path in foreboding shades. Inwardly wrestling with the chain of events he had unknowingly set into motion, Perseus recognized both the gravity of his challenge and the depth of Polydectes' malice. Silently, he resolved to press forward, courage mingling with trepidation beneath his composed exterior. There was no turning back, only forward, toward destiny itself. He understood that to return without success would seem as far away as the stars themselves, unattainable yet unwaveringly present in his dreams. Perseus had resolved not to dwell on the task's enormity, but to embrace it with a bold heart. Availing himself of the night, situated beneath a moon veiled by overcast skies, Perseus began to prepare for the journey that lay before him. His thoughts turned, inevitably, to the gods who watched over his fate. It was said that guidance could come from beyond the mortal plane. As the night stretched onward, Perseus clung to quiet hopes that divine intervention might show him the way in this moment of uncertainty. For now, the uncertainties of travel and the unknown path to Medusa's lair could wait, like distant echoes on the horizon, one step at a time. Perseus, having accepted the grand quest imposed upon him by Polydectes, felt the weight of his boast bear down heavily upon his shoulders. He knew that the journey to retrieve Medusa's head was a perilous one, fraught with challenges that seemed insurmountable without help beyond mortal means. With his resolve firm yet aware of his limitations, Perseus made his way to the temple, hoping for guidance from the divine beings who took interest in mortal affairs. The temple, a sacred space adorned with elegant columns and the scent of olive oil and incense, stood as a beacon of hope amid the uncertainties that lay before him. As Perseus approached the altar, a serene calm enveloped him, easing the tumult within his heart. It was here that Athena, the wise and strategic goddess of wisdom and war, appeared before him. She stood radiant, her presence instilling the strength and foresight of ages within the young hero. With a voice smooth as a gentle breeze, she offered counsel fit for a warrior on the brink of a daunting task. Athena outlined a plan for Perseus, weaving together the strands of destiny with threads of divine intervention. Her guidance was not just strategic, but it was also a reminder that he was not alone, as the gods favored those who showed courage in the face of overwhelming odds. As if summoned by Athena's presence, Hermes, the swift-footed messenger of the gods, joined them in the courtyard. His arrival was marked by a playful energy, a contrast to the solemn wisdom of Athena. Hermes brought forth a pair of winged sandals, crafted by the finest divine artisans, whose sheen glinted like the stars themselves. With these sandals, Perseus would possess the gift of flight, enabling him to traverse great distances with ease and grace, unencumbered by the burdens of earthly travel. Hermes, with a knowing smile, assured Perseus that these sandals would carry him swiftly to the far reaches of the earth, where his courage would be tested. The gifts did not end there, for Athena had one more boon to bestow upon the young hero. From the folds of her ethereal robes, she produced a polished bronze shield. Its surface shimmered like a still pool reflecting the azure sky. Athena instructed Perseus to use the shield to view Medusa's reflection, sparing himself from her petrifying gaze. This clever stratagem ensured that Perseus, while confronting the fearsome Gorgon, would maintain the upper hand, relying on wit over mere brute strength. Hermes, not one to be outdone, pulled Perseus aside with a glint in his eyes. He imparted essential knowledge about the elusive Graeae sisters. These ancient beings, with their shared eye and wisdom, held the key information required for discovering the means to defeat Medusa. Perseus listened intently as Hermes described the location of the Graeae, emphasizing the need for cunning to extract the secrets they guarded so jealously. With the blessings and gifts of the gods, Perseus was emboldened like never before. The divine support wrapped around him like a protective cloak, invigorating his spirit and strengthening his resolve. And so, Perseus set out on his quest, with the whisper of celestial aid echoing in his ears and the promise of destiny guiding his steps. He strode with purpose, the sandals lifting him effortlessly as the landscapes of Greece unfurled beneath his feet like a tapestry of greens, browns, and blues. As the days wore on, Perseus traversed fields and mountains, the wind caressing his face as he sped toward the realms where the Graeae resided. With each beat of his winged sandals, he drew closer to unraveling the mysteries that would lead him to Medusa's lair. The journey was long, yet with the strength of divine gifts and guidance, it felt as though the air itself was guiding him, trimming time and space in his favor. Eventually, as the sun began its descent toward the embrace of the horizon, Perseus felt a sense of fulfillment underlined by the tranquil contentment that accompanies those who walk their fated path. The arduous trek was not without its challenges, but each step reinforced his courage and faith in the destiny charted by the gods. Entrusted with the gifts from Athena and Hermes, Perseus was ready to engage with the Graeae and continue along the winding road of his heroic journey. With divinity as his ally and purpose in his heart, Perseus was prepared to face the tasks ahead, each event a part of the grand tapestry of his life. As the shadows lengthened and the journey continued, Perseus could feel the tendrils of the next challenge drawing near, his spirit unwavering and his gaze steady. In the waning light of day, with the sun setting behind a shroud of autumnal mist, Perseus approached the lair of the Graeae, guided by the whispers of the gods and the determination in his heart. The lair was enshrouded in mystery, a place where shadows played tricks on the eye and the fog hung low, curling around Perseus's feet as if acknowledging his presence in this otherworldly realm. The Graeae daughters of Phorcys and Ceto were known to share a single eye and a single tooth among them, an arrangement that Perseus intended to exploit. Perseus observed the Graeae from a distance, his breath steady and his resolve firm. The sisters, cloaked in ancient rags of gray and silver that mirrored the mist around them, sat in council. Their skin was pale as ash, and they moved with an uncanny grace, each action a part of their strange shared rhythm. They passed the eye between them with careful precision, their movements deliberate and steadfast. It was in these brief moments of transition, when the eye was in motion, that their world lay blind and vulnerable. Perseus watched, biding his time with patience granted by the gods themselves. As dusk settled fully upon the land, Perseus saw his chance and seized it with the cunning of a hero. Just as the eye was being passed gently between two of the sisters, he dashed forward in a blur fueled by the winged sandals gifted by Hermes and snatched the eye from their grasp. The sisters gasped collectively, their expressions twisted in sudden realization and fear, uniting them in immediate protest. A chorus of pleas followed, their voices a symphony of desperation and fear of their own darkness. Holding the eye firmly in his grasp, Perseus remained calm and composed, his voice steady as he addressed the sisters. "Return to me the information I seek, and this eye shall be yours once more." The Graeae trembled, their forms more frail and helpless than they ever appeared, though they knew the balance of power now lay firmly with the young hero. Perseus's demand was clear. He required the secret of Medusa's lair and the location of the Hesperides, keepers of the sacred treasures he needed for his quest. Frustrated and cornered, the sisters exchanged hesitant glances, their protests fading into reluctant acquiescence. They whispered among themselves in ancient tongues, voices brittle and filled with ancient wisdom. Slowly, they revealed the path Perseus sought. The Graeae pointed him toward the western horizon, where the Hesperides guarded the enchanted garden, and divulged the path to the dreaded Gorgon Medusa, a journey fraught with peril and shadowed by myth. Their words wove a tapestry of landscapes and trials, and with each shared secret, the tapestry solidified in Perseus's mind as a map guiding his destiny. Satisfied with the knowledge gained, Perseus extended his hand, returning the eye to the sisters in an act of gesture respect to the old ways. The Graeae quickly snatched the eye back into their care, their agitation now replaced by hollow relief. They sank back into the mists, their forms slowly melding with the shadows of their lair, fading from sight as if they were but phantoms of another time. With a newfound clarity and resolve, Perseus turned away from the lair, the spirits of the mists parting to guide him on his journey. The information gained from the Graeae was more than a navigational tool. It was a beacon of hope that illuminated the road ahead, a journey heavy with destiny and the whispers of gods. With Medusa's lair now on his horizon, and the promise of the Hesperides' aid lying beyond it, Perseus' mission was set. His sandals lifted him from the misty grounds, carrying him skyward toward the next chapter of his epic odyssey, leaving the enigmatic realm of the Graeae behind as another testament to the cunning of that would define his legacy. Having secured the necessary information from the Graeae, Perseus embarked on his journey towards the Garden of the Hesperides, a place steeped in myth and allure. The pathway to this enchanted sanctuary was as mystical as the place itself. As Perseus traversed the terrains illuminated by the breaking dawn, the whisper of gods seemed to echo around, guiding his steps. His heart, driven by purpose, felt the weight of his impending task, yet also the promise of celestial aid he believed awaited him from the daughters of the night. Upon his arrival, the serene beauty of the Hesperides garden unfolded before his eyes. Here, The hues of a setting sun cast a golden glow upon the myriad of celestial trees that adorned the landscape, their branches laden with fruit that shimmered like stars. The air was imbued with a sense of tranquility, an oasis of calm amidst the wild expanse of the mythic world. The Hesperides, known for their grace and wisdom, emerged from the dappled shade, their presence as much a part of the garden's magic as the golden fruits hanging heavy from the branches. The Hesperides welcomed Perseus warmly, recognizing the divine purpose etched on his path. With ethereal grace, they offered him their invaluable aid in the form of gifts, relics of power bestowed by the gods. First, they presented the Cap of Invisibility, a valuable tool against the fearsome Gorgon Medusa. Known for its ability to cloak the wearer in shadows, this cap promised Perseus an advantage like no other, allowing him to move unseen, like a whisper in the land of nightmares he soon would face. Next, they placed in his hands a magical sack, a vessel woven with the fabric of enchantment, capable of holding the head of Medusa safely. This sack, both practical and mystical, signified the gravity and reality of Perseus's quest. It was not merely a tool, but a reminder of the enormity of his mission and the lethal nature of his soon-to-be trophy. The Hesperides, with voices as soothing as the garden's gentle breezes, spoke words of encouragement, filling Perseus with reassurance concerning his fate. With these new gifts, Perseus felt a surge of empowerment, a renewed strength that intertwined with his unwavering determination. Physically, he carried little more than before, but spiritually, his burdens were lighter, buoyed by the certainties of destiny, intertwined with divine favor. The garden's serene influence bolstered his resolve, enabling him to embrace his quest with the calm confidence of a hero aligned with purpose. As he prepared to leave the garden, Perseus expressed gratitude, his heart filled with a profound appreciation for the aid and kindness bestowed upon him. The Hesperides, their role in this grand saga complete, watched as he departed along the garden's gentle paths. As twilight painted the sky in hues of lavender and blue, Perseus found himself renewed, grounded in the knowledge that he was never alone on this journey. Stepping beyond the boundary of the garden, Perseus set his course towards the ominous Lair of Medusa, where horrors undoubtedly awaited. Yet, the shadow of fear was softened by hope and the protections he now bore. The path was fraught with danger, yet his steps were guided by fate, and the tools he carried were crafted by destiny's design. With his destination clear and his mind alight with purpose, Perseus moved forward through the mythical landscapes with steady intent. The Hercules twang of his bowstring sang through the silence, and the gleam of the polished bronze shield reflected his unyielding resolve. Each step brought him closer to fulfilling his heroic journey. Each moment inched him towards a confrontation that would define his legend. Thus, equipped with the gifts from the Hesperides and buoyed by their words, Perseus felt prepared. The echo of divine support trailed his every step, serving as a constant reminder of the god's presence. Steeling himself for the trials ahead, he made his way towards the daunting and darkened sanctuary of the Gorgons, where Medusa awaited, his heart echoing with the promises forged in that magical, golden garden. Navigating the desolate lands to reach Medusa's lair, Perseus felt the weight of his mission intensify. The journey through barren landscapes was made more arduous by the encroaching darkness of the night. The solitude was profound. Not even the whisper of the wind broke the eerie silence surrounding his path. This place, devoid of life, seemed a fitting precursor to the sinister lair he sought. Undeterred, he pressed on, each step bringing him closer to the challenge that lay ahead. Arriving at the entrance of Medusa's lair, Perseus donned the cap of invisibility gifted to him by the Hesperides. The cap rendered him unseen, a critical advantage against the formidable gaze that had turned many to stone. As he stepped cautiously forward, the air felt thick with an unnerving stillness. Each statue he passed was a grim reminder of those who had come before him, their faces forever frozen in expressions of terror. Perseus felt a shiver run down his spine, but resolve firmed his grip on the bronze shield. It was this very shield, polished like a mirror, that would allow him to face Medusa without meeting her eyes. Inside the lair, shadows danced across the walls, morphing the rocky interior into a realm of nightmarish specters. Perseus advanced, his eyes continuously sweeping the surroundings through the shield's reflection. The lair felt alive with the presence of its cursed inhabitant, even in her absence. A quiet menace loomed in the air, as if the very walls watched him. Yet it was not until he reached the inner sanctum that the terror of Medusa was fully realized. There lay Medusa herself, asleep amongst the petrified remains of her previous victims, her hair of living snakes eerily still in their slumber. Almost entranced by the sight, Perseus knew he needed to act swiftly. Moving with the precision and caution that only a divine strategist could inspire, he maneuvered himself into position. The reflection in the bronze shield was his ally, guiding his sword arm with unerring accuracy. His breath steady, his heart a calm rhythm in his chest, he lowered his sword. In a single fluid motion, the hero swung the weapon, severing Medusa's head from her body. Her curse silenced, Perseus carefully placed the head into the magical sack, its gaze now safely contained yet still potent. No sooner had Medusa fallen than the danger of the lair reawakened. The very air seemed to tremble as the earth groaned with dissatisfaction. Perseus could feel the presence of her sisters, Stheno and Uriel, stirring in distant corners of the realm. Recognizing his peril, he wasted no time, relying on the cap's invisibility to mask his escape. With footsteps as silent as shadows, Perseus retreated from the lair, aware that to linger would invite a pursuit that he might not evade. Emerging into the night, Perseus felt the chill of the outside air settle around him. The mission had tested his courage and cunning, requiring every ounce of divine favor bestowed upon him. Yet victory was his, a triumph carved from the mythic stone of destiny itself. With Medusa's head secured, Perseus began his track back through the desolate land, the cap ensuring that Medusa's sisters, should they come in search of retribution, would find nothing more than empty echoes of his passage. Thus the hero's return journey began, each step marking the end of one trial and the anticipation of those yet to come. Perseus knew the weight of his task was far from lifted. New challenges loomed ahead in the vast tapestry of his heroic journey, and the silent night held its breath as he made his way, the safe passage from Medusa's blood-soaked lair secured by the favor of the gods. As the first light of dawn crept across the horizon, Perseus stood outside the dark and ominous lair of Medusa. The chill of the autumn air whispered of both triumph and danger. Medusa's petrifying head was safely ensconced in the magical sack, a symbol of his drive and divine mandate. Yet, the silence of victory was shattered by the awakening roars of Medusa's sisters, Stheno and Uriel, who now realized the fate that had befallen their sibling. With a fury born of anguish, the Gorgons launched into the pursuit of the son of Zeus, their shrieks piercing through the air like harbingers of impending doom. Perseus, relying on the divine gifts bestowed upon him, particularly the winged sandals of Hermes, took flight. The landscape beneath him transformed into a blur of windswept crags and shadowed valleys as he soared on, propelled by both urgency and the ethereal power of the gods. The Gorgons, despite their formidable rage and relentless pursuit, found their wrath unable to reach the hero directly. Perseus, unseen owing to the cap of invisibility granted by Athena, maneuvered through the challenging terrains with the dexterity of a bird skilled in evasive flight. His passage was swift and deliberate, each wing beat taking him further from the site of peril, closer to the promise of home. The hunt was relentless. Stheno and Uriela, unleashing their fury in a desperate chase across the skies of myth. Yet, Perseus's swiftness and the concealment of the cap allowed him to remain a specter on the winds, a whisper elusive to their grasp. The rocky landscape below passed in a mesmerizing tapestry of mythic vistas, but Perseus's thoughts were far from the beauty around him. His mind hovered over the mission's gravity and its implications for both mortal and divine affairs. Hermes, the messenger god, subtly guided his journey from danger, directing Perseus with unseen hands through the safest passages, leading him away from the clutches of the Gorgons. It was the god's interventions that provided Perseus with the safe routes across the wilderness, always one step ahead of the pursuing rage. The path was treacherous, dotted with unexpected perils, a fallen tree, a sudden gust, but Perseus, with the confidence instilled by divine guidance, conquered each in graceful succession. As the fervor of escape began to calm, Perseus allowed himself a moment's contemplation on the mighty venture he had undertaken. Reflecting upon the divine gifts bequeathed to him, the sandals, the cap, the shield, he perceived them not only as weapons of survival, but as instruments that forged his path toward defining the hero. Within, the weight of Medusa's head, although a burden, was a testament to his courage, resourcefulness, and the sheer drive to meet his destiny. In these moments of introspection, amidst the untouched skies and rugged topography, Perseus acknowledged the deeper currents at play in his journey. The challenges thus far had tested his resolve, showcasing the delicate dance between mortal bravery and divine intervention, affirming the duality that lay at the heart of all heroic myths. Each step had been its own lesson, a prelude to the forthcoming chapters of his life yet unwritten. Successfully evading the dangers, Perseus turned his thoughts toward home, the island of Seriphos and his mother Danae, who awaited him. The tangible weight of Medusa's head was now juxtaposed by the intangible but equal weight of his actions and their implications, both a burden and a testament to the legacy he was building. He sensed that his journey was far from complete, each beat of his winged sandals a solemn reminder that heroes were forged in trials both grand and humble. As dawn gently painted the sky in hues of silver and blue, Perseus continued his flight, the wind cradling him toward the ethereal line where earth met heaven. The horizon stretched out before him, urging him onward, an endless promise of adventure, redemption, and challenges yet to be faced. The world below shifted slowly from the craggy mountains toward more familiar lands, signaling the approach of new horizons and unspoken fates. Perseus knew that each flight would bring him closer, not only to home, but to an encounter that would forever alter his course. His eyes set determinedly towards the distance, his heart carrying both the weight of his triumphs and the anticipation of challenges yet to be met. The wind continued its steady song as Perseus soared above the vast landscapes, each wing stroke a testament to the myth he was weaving with every moment of his voyage. Each moment in the air told a silent story, merging with the whispers of myth and legacy, heralding his passage from heroism of tasks, complete to the enigmas of those awaiting. As the first rays of dawn touched the horizon, Perseus flew across the Ethiopian coast, his winged sandals carrying him swiftly over rocky cliffs and churning seas. His journey thus far had been fraught with peril and triumph, but fate had one more task for him. Below, the landscape stretched out in rugged beauty, yet his keen eyes were drawn to a scene of distress. A maiden chained to a solitary rock, jutting out into the sea, her presence as striking as it was sorrowful. The figure was Andromeda, daughter of Cassiopeia and Cepheus, her fate sealed by the folly of her mother's boasts. Cassiopeia had claimed her own beauty exceeded that of the Nereids, the sea nymphs, an affront that angered Poseidon, god of the sea. In retribution, the coastal kingdom was besieged by a monstrous sea creature, and Andromeda was offered as a sacrifice to appease the wrathful deity. Perseus descended, propelled not only by his enchanted gifts but by a burgeoning sense of duty. He approached the rock where Andromeda was bound, her chains gleaming harshly against the morning light. Her plight was evident. Fear wove through her voice as she explained her predicament, though her resolve shone through her fear. In her, Perseus saw a reflection of his own determination, and, recognizing a chance to blend heroism with compassion, he proposed a bargain. He would defeat the beast if she would become his bride, a promise of partnership and respect rather than captivity. Just as the echoes of Andromeda's acceptance faded, the sea began to churn violently, heralding the monster's arrival. From beneath the waves, the creature emerged, a colossal beast whose roar matched the thunder of the surf. The air crackled with tension as Perseus prepared for the confrontation. Drawing upon the tools bestowed by divine favor, he soared above the thrashing waters, striking a balance between courage and calm that had carried him through countless trials. The battle commenced, with Perseus employing Medusa's head, carefully extracting it from the magical sack. Keeping his eyes shielded, he relied on the mirror-like surface of the shield to guide his aim. With a swift and decisive maneuver, he directed the fearsome visage of Medusa toward the creature. The transformation was immediate. The monstrous form stiffened and solidified, enshrined forever in a memorial of its own undoing, a stark figure against the tumultuous seascape. Andromeda's chains held no power now, their purpose rendered void. Freed from the impending threat, she was met by the embrace of her liberator, his promise fulfilled. Her family, initially paralyzed by terror as they watched from a distance, rushed forth to greet and to thank the hero who had altered the course of fate with his bravery. Cepheus and Cassiopeia, both humbled and relieved, readily agreed to the union between their daughter and this demigod who had proved himself beyond measure. As Perseus and Andromeda stood together, a bond formed that went beyond gratitude, a shared understanding born of trial and triumph. They exchanged few words, for language could not fully capture the convergence of destiny that had brought them together. Instead, there was a mutual acknowledgement that their paths, once separate, would now twine like strands of a destined tale. With the sea at their backs and the future unfurling before them, Perseus and Andromeda prepared themselves to return to Seriphos. There awaited not only the continuation of Perseus's odyssey, but also an impending resolution of the challenges left behind. As winged sandals carried them skyward, there was a sense of calm purpose, a hero not merely returning but also advancing toward an ultimate confrontation, where justice and peace lay in the balance. Having saved Andromeda from certain doom, Perseus now found his path leading back to the verdant island of Seriphos, where new trials awaited. With Andromeda at his side, both their hearts were buoyed by the shared promise of a future brimming with hope, despite the shadows of duty lingering on the horizon. As their ship pushed against gentle waves, Perseus mused upon the confrontations yet to come, aware that his heroic journey was far from over. Arriving on Seriphos' familiar shores, a sense of destiny pervaded the air as Perseus, now a hero returning victorious, stepped with purpose onto the island. The people of Seriphos, once indifferent, now looked upon him with awe, his legendary deeds already echoing through rustic villages and across the bustling market squares. Andromeda's presence at his side cast an added aura of mystery and charm, with her grace as luminous as the tale of her rescue. At the palace gates, it was Dictys, the compassionate fisherman who had long been protector to Danae and Perseus, who greeted the hero with a heart full of relief and pride. Dictys quickly shared news of the injustices that had pervaded the island's court in Perseus's absence. Polydectes' rule had grown ever more oppressive, his despotic whims casting a cloud over the island, spreading dissatisfaction and unrest among the people. Perseus assessed the situation with a determined resolve, knowing that his confrontation with Polydectes would test his abilities beyond monstrous encounters of the past. Facing the tyrant within the grand halls of the palace, Perseus found Polydectes dismissive, a mocking disbelief veiling his face as he ridiculed the feats claimed by Perseus, doubting a hero's prowess without scars to show. The court, under Polydectes' influence, seemed poised to echo his scorn. With calm conviction and a steady hand, Perseus unwrapped the parcel he had carried all this way, revealing the ghastly visage of Medusa. Her petrifying gaze, though silent, was still potent with the power of the Gorgon. As he maneuvered the head just within view, a wave of stillness engulfed the room. With a sense of justice served, the merciless visage turned Polydectes and his sycophants into stony sculptures, their features captured forever in expressions of surprise, fear, and disbelief. Liberated from tyranny, Seriphos breathed a collective sigh of relief. The island, once shrouded in the darkness of Polydectes' reign, now basked in the light of newfound freedom. The people, grateful and eager to redefine their lives, flocked to express gratitude towards Perseus, heralding him as their savior. In this pivotal moment, his mother Danae, her eyes alight with pride, met her son with an embrace filled with warmth and an unspoken admiration for his courage and determination. In the wake of this transformation, Dictys was appointed as the rightful king of Seriphos. As a leader, he embodied the principles of fairness and honor, qualities that were notably absent in Polydectes' regime. Under Dictys' guidance, the island thrived once more, the sun of justice piercing through clouds of past tyranny and illuminating the path to peace and prosperity. For Perseus, this act of justice was not merely an end but a significant chapter in the ongoing saga of his life. Reflectively, he stood before the statues of his erstwhile foes, contemplating the complexities of justice, power, and destiny. Each step of his journey had been marked by divine guidance, fortuitous encounters, and moments of daunting adversity, all on a quest that demanded bravery and wisdom in equal measure. As the first rays of dawn cast a golden hue over Seriphos, a beautifully serene moment punctuated this time of renewal and hope. Perseus, along with Andromeda, stood at the palace threshold, watching as the island awoke from a long nightmare into a promised day. The tranquility resonated with a sense of achievement and a readiness for further adventures. One chapter of Perseus's life had closed, but another beckoned, filled with whispers of destiny and duties yet to be fulfilled. In this moment of peace, his thoughts steered toward his divine lineage and the obligations tethered to his roots, realizing that his tasks were far from complete. He understood that his journey would continue, shaped by both divine will and human choice, and his legacy yet forming beyond the immediate horizon. With the oppressive rule of Polydectes behind him, Perseus stood at the threshold of new beginnings. The island of Seriphos, now under the just rule of Dictys, basked in its newfound peace. Yet amidst the unfolding tranquility, Perseus felt a pull towards his origins, a whisper of destiny beckoning him back to Argos. It was there, in the land of his birth, that an unresolved chapter in his life awaited, woven by prophecy and divine lineage. Perseus, his heart a mosaic of triumph and introspection, resolved to travel back to Argos, accompanied by Andromeda. Together, they embarked on the path that wound through the ancient landscapes of Greece. The journey was not merely a physical return. It marked a deeper quest for understanding of his roots, his destiny, and the legacy he was destined to spearhead. Along the way, tales of his valorous deeds had traveled faster than his golden sandals, and in every village and town, he was welcomed as a hero whose exploits bordered on the divine. As they progressed, with each climb delineating a part of his journey, Perseus pondered the narrative of his identity. Born of Zeus and Danae, his tale was sculpted by divine intervention and mortal trials. Yet, underscoring these ruminations was the provocative prophecy whispered by the oracles so long ago, a prophecy that had shadowed his life like a specter. It foretold the end of his grandfather Acrisius at his hands, a cloudy bond that persisted in influencing the course of their lives. Upon reaching a quaint Greek settlement, a tale concerning Acrisius reached Perseus's ears. The old king, gripped by the inevitability of fate, had fled Argos, fearing the manifestation of the oracle's prediction. This revelation cast a veil of solemnity over Perseus's heart. A complexity of emotions stirred at the thought of the grandfather he had never known, yet whose fate was inevitably linked to his own. Determined, Perseus learned that Acrisius had sought refuge in Larissa, a place that now carried the weight of impending revelations. Perseus steered his course to this new destination, accompanied faithfully by Andromeda, who shared in his journey every step of the way. The road to Larissa was laden with mythic echoes, testament to his purpose and the looming encounter with destiny. As they approached Larissa, news of athletic games being held in the city reached Perseus. The event, a celebration of strength and skill, seemed serendipitous to his purpose there. The games offered a perfect avenue to announce his presence, perhaps drawing Acrisius out from the depths of his self-imposed seclusion. Furthermore, participating in the games reaffirmed Perseus's prowess, a symbolic gesture that not just showcased his heroism, but also connected him back to Zeus, the master of the heavens, through fuel. The primal contest of skill and ingenuity. Emboldened by the gravity of his mission and the prophecy's long shadow looming ever clearer, Perseus entered the games with a stoic heart. As he prepared to compete, the crowd buzzed with tales of his deeds, the slayer of Medusa, the savior of Andromeda. Among them, his presence ignited admiration and anticipation, a hero of legend among them, poised to demonstrate the manifestations of both divine favor and human resilience. The games unfolded with the stirrings of destiny, each event a prelude to the foreboding prophecy laid upon Perseus's lineage. The contests tested both balance and strength, echoing the challenges he had faced thus far. Yet, unbeknownst to Perseus, the audience held a presence unknown to him. Acrisius, shrouded in anonymity, was amongst the spectators, a frail figure watching from the shadows, his heart burdened with the fear of the prophecy which had begun on the day Perseus was born. Perseus, unaware of the watcher's identity who hid beneath common garb, gave in to the spirit of competition. He took his turn in the discus throw, where in a moment of unintended force, an errant throw seemed to carve paths through the air, leaving in its wake the murmur of prophecy's fulfillment. As the disc orbited, Perseus's journey intertwined inexorably with that of Acrisius, carving a path toward the prophecy's chilling fulfillment, a path soon to be navigated. The road forward, though traveled with purpose and foresight, held still its secrets woven by the mysteries of oracles and the whims of tattered fate, a journey yet unfolding beneath skies brooding. With impending revelational import, the sun shone brightly over the Colosseum in Larissa, illuminating the vibrant scene where athletes prepared for the competitions. Perseus, now recognized far and wide for his heroic deeds, participated with an air of destiny surrounding him. The mood was charged with anticipation as spectators gathered to witness the athletic prowess of the renowned hero. Among the rows of committed viewers was Acrisius, unrecognized by Perseus, mingling unnoticed within the assembly. The spectating crowd was a tapestry of eager faces, their enthusiasm echoing the spectacle as each athlete took their turn. Perseus approached the discus throw with confidence, his previous feats promising yet another display of strength and skill. Gracefully, he picked up the discus, its metallic glint catching the sun's rays. The weight of the stone in his hand felt like another trial from the gods. As he wound up for the throw, the crowd hushed in anticipation, eyes trained on the young hero. He took a deep breath, focused his energy, and with a powerful motion, released the discus. It sailed through the air, embodying the force and precision emblematized by Perseus's journey thus far. As the disgust soared, its path deviated slightly, veering off course from its intended finish. Serendipity seemed absent, for the disgust arched higher and farther than anticipated. Unbeknownst to Perseus, the very courtside trajectory brought a fateful outcome. The disgust struck Acrisius with unerring precision, fulfilling the grim oracle that had haunted him since Perseus's birth. The once steadfast Acrisius fell, and with him, the weight of suspended destinies cascaded into reality. Shock rippled through the Colosseum, turning anticipatory cheers into a stunned silence. The incident crystallized in time, each spectator acutely aware of the prophecy's sudden fulfillment. Grief enveloped Perseus, his heart heavy with the unintended consequence of his actions. It was as though the fates themselves had aligned, invisible threads finally weaving into the tapestry of an ancient promise. Perseus kneeled at the center of that Colosseum, the enormity of the event dawning upon him like a somber shadow. The news diffused rapidly, casting a pall over what had been a day marked for celebration. Conversations buzzed with the echoes of fate's cruel decree, the oracle's words now vindicated. What once was bound in myth now transpired in reality, resonating deeply with those who bore witness. The tragic scene unfolded with a slow, inevitable deliberation, a harrowing insight into the permanence of prophecy and myth. As the sun began its descent, its golden hues unable to warm the chilling reality, Perseus sought solace in Andromeda's gentle presence. Her comforting words were a balm to his troubled spirit, offering a momentary respite from guilt and sorrow. Despite not having known Acrisius personally, the loss hung heavily on Perseus, entangled with a history not of his making but intrinsically bound to his being. Gripped by contemplative silence, Perseus contended with the circumstances bound inexorably by the will of the gods. The immutable completion of prophecy intertwined with his legacy as foretold, reaffirming the intertwined destiny bestowed upon him at birth. Wrestling with resolve, he understood the deeper workings of divine narratives engraved upon human lives, grim yet integral chapters within the expansive saga of existence that none could alter. In the pallor of melancholy, Perseus resolved to forge ahead, wiser and ever more attuned to the cryptic designs of fate. The path remained open before him, albeit shadowed by a poignant lesson learned, the unyielding march of destiny beyond human intervention. With Andromeda steadfast by his side, he nurtured a determined heart, centered on embracing the tribulations and responsibilities that laid ahead. As he gazed upon the refreshed horizon, bridging the present into continuation, Perseus vowed to honor the lineage of his heritage amidst the unfurling human narrative. The dust settled after the tragic fulfillment of the prophecy at Larissa, where Perseus had accidentally caused his grandfather Acrisius's demise during the games. Struck by the weight of destiny, Perseus found a calm acceptance within him. The web of fate had been spun, and he stood at the center, linking past and future with a thread only the gods could weave. He understood that this outcome was foretold, unavoidable, and it paved the path forward, not with grief, but with a poignant understanding of his place in the tapestry of myth and legend. With steadfastness and clarity, Perseus journeyed back to Argos, accompanied by his beloved Andromeda. The road to Argos was not merely a journey across the familiar landscapes of Greece, but a return to the heart of his lineage, the land that was the cradle of his prophecy. As the travelers approached the city, the shadows of past events slowly lifted, revealing an Argos ready to welcome him, not as a problematic prophecy, but as a rightful ruler, a beacon unto its people. The people of Argos, having heard of his heroic deeds, greeted him with respect and reverence, embracing the calm and order that the young hero heralded. In the halls of Argos, Perseus solidified his legacy, not through conquest, but through the steady hammering of governance, justice, and kindness. With Andromeda by his side, they restored peace and prosperity to the region, building on foundations that would bestow stability for generations. His rule was marked by fairness, a beacon that drew inspiration from the deep well of his experiences, those seasoned with divine encounters and earthly challenges. Here, Perseus proved his mettle, not just as a warrior, but as a leader of men and a custodian of fates. In keeping a divine promise, Perseus prepared to honor Athena, the goddess who had aided him. With reverence, he set out to return to her the prized possession that had once spelled doom, the head of Medusa. It was a gift to the goddess, a testament to his journey, and the respect he held for the divine favors bestowed upon him. Presenting it on the altar dedicated to her wisdom and strategy, Perseus felt the easing of a burden. Athena, in her glory, accepted his offering, further cementing Perseus' place in the annals of heroism, sanctified by gods and men alike. As time carried them forward, Perseus and Andromeda started their family, a vibrant symbol of continuity and hope. Their children carried the seeds of legacy, embodying both the stars of Andromeda's lineage and the heroic bloodline of Perseus, son of Zeus. Their union was a splendid tapestry woven with the threads of triumph and tribulation, while their home in Argos remained a locus of legend, where stories of valor breathed life into futures untold. In this way, the prophecy's significance began to extend beyond the confines of mortality, becoming timeless like the myths born of everlasting whispers in winds. Perseus understood that his journey was part of a larger, endless narrative, a celestial pattern dictated by the gods, echoing across ages, resonating through stars that told stories of his valor. And thus came the Ascension, marking Perseus's immortalization as a constellation, a celestial tribute, a hero among the heavenly bodies. In the night sky, the stars gathered to sketch his image, a reflection of his bravery and deeds that would shine eternally. The constellated Perseus not only lit up the heavens but also stood as a guardian, his form whispering tales of mythic heroism to dreamers and travelers who gazed upon the vast expanse of the sky. As the myths of Perseus's endeavors wove their way into the scripts of time, his legacy carried forth a sacred light, soothing and eternal, guiding heroes yet to come and inspiring those who dare the winding paths of fate. The journey of Perseus did not end with mortal footsteps. It soared amongst the stars, a legacy enshrined in myth, echoing the narrative of heroism endlessly playing out in the celestial arena above.